and how much your parents will actually, weirdly enough, understand it later on. But it's the first few years that might be tough.
Nema Naz, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're recording later than we intended to, and I totally picked up on the fact that Nema is usually a 5 minutes early kind of person, which he confirmed.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but it happens.
But I can tell you're a very serious person. You're very serious about your craft. You're disciplined, and all of that comes through with what you do all the time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I definitely I take pride in all that for sure, and it's definitely the motto I like to live by.
Yeah, so this series is called Growing Up Irooni. So let's go back to your first of all, if anyone doesn't know who Nima is, which I would be very surprised by, but you're a comedian working in Canada. You're currently in Canada. You were in Australia for a little bit, but right now you're back at home base and you're you're coming to America at a really awesome time. Nothing's going on here. It's going to be smooth sailing.
It's some wild stuff happening. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but I'm ready for battle.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big American tour this year. But yeah, introduce yourself, tell us what you do now, and then let's go back to the beginning and see how you got here.
Yeah, I'm a comedian and actor, content creator, whatever you want to call it. I've been doing comedy for almost 10 years now. Stand up, acting, stage performance, anything, all the on camera, off camera. I just I love what I do, and I tour doing stand up. I just actually my movie premiered a couple nights ago.
Oh,
I was a lead
amazing.
I was a lead in a movie, yeah, and I make content online. Obviously, it's been a few years for that too. That it's been growing and popping off a little bit. So yeah, I'm currently on my world tour, and it starts in Canada. Then I'm gonna go to Europe, and then US and Australia and other places as well. And yeah, I just try to make people laugh every day. That's my goal.
Amazing. And I will say I've been following you for a few years now, and I feel like your comedy has evolved a lot because there was a time a few years ago where I was like, "Oh, I don't know about the direction that this is going." And I don't know if you have done this consciously, but I feel like you've become a lot like softer and kinder, and like there was a time when it was a little bit like for me I was like, "Oh no, it might go like in a way that I won't be able to relate to, but at this point, like, I just love everything that you do. So is that something that you've consciously, like, changed in a bit, or do you pick up on that?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean, but
It's just a natural evolution.
yeah, are you talking about the more touching on different like progressive stuff, like the woke stuff, or just in?
No, 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 no. I feel like there were certain things, like, a few years ago, like, about women or the way you would even talk about, like, diversity and stuff that I was like, "Oh, it could go in a way that would be mean," you know?
Oh, yeah,
But I feel like that's, like, I don't pick up on that at all
yeah.
anymore.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, I think it's because obviously the older I get, the more I mature and I learn more things about different types of people and races and ethnicities and cultures. But yeah, my stuff has always been cultural from the start.
Yep.
It's just maybe it probably could have come off worse before because I didn't put enough thought or effort into it. But yeah, obviously now naturally with the natural progression is I've gotten much more strategic and smarter about making those jokes about different cultures and ethnicities because it's truly still my humor and it always will be just because of how I was raised here in Canada. But yeah, like my goal and my pure intention is to not put people down. It's to represent for different cultures and my own people as well, obviously. So yeah, that's where I come from it now.
Totally. I completely feel that. And you do so many collaborations that are just amazing with different cultures. And I feel like that's very unique that you're doing. You bring in people, and even we've talked about like collaborating in the past. I feel like your collaborative spirit is really wonderful. And especially not only with other cultures, but with your family.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So let's go back to little Nima. So you grew up in Canada. Tell me about your upbringing, your relationship with your family, and with the Iranian culture.
I was always the funny kid in my family. So at every mehmooni, all the Persian family gatherings we had, my parents and their friends would always, at the end of the party, they would make me go up in front of all of them and try to make them laugh.
No.
That was my
No.
role. That was my role for
Wow.
my whole life, and I was never shy. I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll do it." And then
Wow.
like, I'm 7 or 8 years old, and then, like, there's all these adults and their kids. There's, like, 20, 30 people in front of me, and I'm just standing there, and, like, I was like, "Oh, what's funny to me? How can I make them laugh?" And, I just thought of stories about my mom that I thought were funny, which always hit every single time. It was almost pretty much the same story I would tell everyone, and they loved it equally every time. And, I love the fact that I grew up being so culturally rich in the Persian culture, because I think it made me into the human being I am today. Because in Persian culture, we're so giving and kind and fun and poetic and musical, and that's why I'm a comedian, because my whole family is artistic. My dad plays the daf, that the Persian
Yeah.
I don't know what's called, a hand instrument. I was a drummer growing up. My brother's a DJ, like long time, toured everywhere. My mom is a great singer and loves to dance. We all like to dance and everything. So I feel like I took that and made it my own and became this comedian now. And they're also very funny too. And yeah, I just think it was the foundation to who I am now.
Well, tell me about, Toronto in general. So, I know it's kind of like called did you grow up in Toronto? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, just outside of Toronto. It's a suburb of Toronto.
Okay. It's also called Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto. Yeah.
So there's a lot of Iranians. So you grew
Yeah.
up with just the culture constantly around you. Is that right?
No, I never grew up in Toronto with where all the Persians lived.
Okay.
Which is in Richmond Hill. It's a suburb of Toronto. But I grew up in a place called Scarborough, which is another suburb of Toronto. And I actually grew up with so many different cultures. I grew up with Indians, Chinese people, Arabs, white people, Jamaicans, like Africans, like everyone. It wasn't just strictly Persians, which some people do grow up like that in some of those suburbs. But I'm lucky that I grew up with everyone. I always say, like, my group of friends growing up was the United Nations. It was amazing. It was like the Avengers of immigrants. It was fantastic. So that's why I feel like I'm an extension of the people I grew up around, and that's why what I do now when I make jokes about different ethnicities and races and collab with different cultures is because I have a love for it,
Mm.
and it's something I'm comfortable with because that's how I grew up. And yeah,
Did you grow
that's
up speaking Persian in the family?
yeah. My I actually went to Farsi school for like a year, and I hated it, and I was like, I'm not doing this,
Uh-huh.
and then I just stopped, which I want. It's one of the things I regret because I'm not as strong in Farsi now because of it, and I feel like I would have been much better. But it's fine because at least my parents still spoke Farsi to me in the house and, with their friends and the mehmoonis, right? So I learned most of it. It's just, I have a little bit of a lahja, a little accent.
Yeah. So when your parents speak to you now, do you answer back in English or in Persian?
Bit of both, bit of both. But they also understand English how I say it, and sometimes they say some stuff in English too. But yeah, it's mostly Farsi. But yeah, like I wish I was better.
How did comedy evolve into a profession for you? What was your career path and how did you get to this?
So I actually dropped out of school after my first year in university because I found comedy, and there's a program in Toronto that it's like a 2-year comedy program, and they offer courses like how to write for TV, how to write for stand up, how to write for sketch comedy, how to act, improv, physical comedy. So they offered all these courses with different teachers who were in that field for 20 years, and I was like, "Oh, this is amazing." It clicked for me. I was like, "Oh, this is exactly what I would love to do," because I was always miserable in school and I hated going to lectures and I didn't really care about random topics I didn't fully have interest in. And when I found this comedy program, I was like, "Oh, like this is exactly what I've been needing my whole life." And I just kind of went for it. I just took the risk and I took the jump, and I fully committed from the start. And now I'm here.
Oh, wow. And what did your parents say when you decided to go down that path?
Well, yeah, they didn't really get it at first because, and I have a joke about this in my stand-up set right now, but they were just confused because back home in Iran, like, there's no comedy. You know? It's like, just shut up and go to work.
Right.
So when I first made that decision to drop out of school, which was like, a pretty good school and a good program in Toronto, and paid all this money for it. I didn't pay for it. My dad did. And just a preface, they were kind of confused. My dad was like kind of a little disappointed. He's like, "Oh, like, but what about this program? Like, you're supposed to get a degree and all this stuff, right?" But
Right.
then they saw how much conviction I had to do this, and they're like, "We're not going to change this guy's mind. Like, so
Wow.
might as well just like accept it." My mom was crying. She's like, "Nima, how are you going to make money? What's going to happen? How are you going to make money? How
Yeah.
are you going to have whatever?" But she just like they just care. They just really want me to be happy. My brother too. Like they want us to be really happy and do things that will keep us successful and afloat in this world.
Right.
So that's why I was very lucky because from the jump they were actually quite supportive
Wow.
regardless of not understanding, but it really made me kick into high gear and kind of just really grind for those first few years, and they saw that, and I got it from them. The drive I have is my parents' drive of them fleeing their country to come to Canada. I'm like, I can go 6 hours and just do a few open mics every night. So, that's kind of how it happened.
And then you pulled your brother into it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, naturally.
So tell me about that, which I tried to convince your brother to come on this podcast too, because I
Oh,
was like, "I
really?
feel like you're" yeah, I was like, "I
Yeah.
feel like you're such a big part of this operation." I'd like he was like, "Maybe next time, so we might have to do a part 2."
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, he's more of behind the scenes kind of guy. He doesn't really like the camera, but yeah, no, he it naturally happened. It was actually just before the pandemic hit. It was a week before the pandemic hit. I was on the road, as a starving artist or whatever it is, a amateur, semi-pro comedian. You try to make ends meet. You go to different cities and you get on some random shows just to get a 5 minute set or 10 minute set on stage in front of different audiences. And I was sleeping on other comedians' couches in filthy places, eating the worst food. Not taking care of yourself, all those things. And then when I got back home, I was just like drained and exhausted, and I was like, like I just felt like shit. Nothing was really hitting, and I was working some random part-time jobs just to like make a little bit of money, but I wasn't fully invested in like all in on the comedy at the time. And then he came along. He's like, "Why don't you just move back home, save your money, and then go all in on content? And you can still go do stand up, but like focus on the content because the pandemic hit. No one could leave their house anyway." And then he's like, "Yo, why don't you just do this?" And then actually, like, leading up to that, there were a few times where I would get emails about certain things, and I would always ask him for help because I didn't
Mhm.
really know what to do, and I trusted his judgment. And then after
What did he do? Like, what was he doing at the time?
he was just DJing and like just doing random jobs, like
So he was in this type of industry.
oh yeah, he was in the entrepreneurial world himself already for like over a decade, so he understood the back end stuff about all those things, and he learned the hard way. And so I think, and my thing we always say is like, if my brother didn't go through what he had to go through, he wouldn't be able to do what he's doing for me now. So it was almost like it's meant to be. Like it was just, yeah, it was crazy timing. And so yeah, it was just like after a while, I kept asking him for help. He would just be like, "Here, you want? Let me just do it." And then that's kind of how it naturally happened. And then we're just like, "Yo, you want to just help me and maybe try to build this together?" And then he's like, "Yeah, like you need help." And I was like, "All right, yeah, I do." And that's it. And then it kind of started.
He said, "Mom and dad were going all in."
Yeah. None of us are getting degrees. We're all 100% on we don't know what's gonna happen.
So then how did you start? So there's the pandemic, and then is that when you started to go all in on content? You were at home with the whole family?
Yeah, well, I was already making content for a few years. It's just it was very inconsistent and sporadic. Trying to like find my way with stand up and acting and content. Nothing was structured well. My life was chaotic. It was just all over the place. And so that first month, I actually took a month off of social media and went completely dark because I needed to focus on my health first
Wow.
and focus on getting my brain right and my body right before I could continue down this path. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, I was just gonna spiral and like keep burning out and just like if I don't feel good, if I don't feel healthy, how can I make good content?
Right.
How can I do well on stage? So I definitely needed that, and that was a big turning point of my career now, because when I came back with a vengeance of like, I'm gonna kill these videos. And for a week straight, every video just started popping off and went viral. And because I took more time and effort into putting thought into the videos, and yeah, it's just from there I was like, oh, okay, now I know what the value of taking care of yourself is as well. So,
Wow.
and structuring your days and everything, you know.
All that fun stuff. And then how did you start roping your mom into making content with you?
So I remember when I first started making YouTube videos, it was the era of people doing pranks, and I was like, "Oh, this is hilarious! I love this stuff. I gotta find a way to do this with my mom. I think it will like break the internet because it's like who's pranking a Persian mom?" And I already knew like she's a very funny person and like a kind person, and like she'll do whatever she can for her kids and whatever. So I was like, I feel like she'll be fine with it. I remember the first video I posted was a drug prank, and I was pranking her on like, hey, like I sell drugs now, and like I do it, and like and she completely was like shattered. I remember in the video.
Was she acting?
It was completely real, but the problem was I was also amateur, and I thought like I could be this prankster. But the way I did it wrong was because I played it too well, where it was like too believable, not like me just being annoying. It was me just like
Right.
seriously like I was hurt, like I was, and so she felt like it was real. So anyway, when I in the video I broke it to her, I was like, oh, I'm just kidding, like it's a joke, and she cussed me out obviously in part. And then the comments on that video, it actually, I think it went somewhat semi-viral in like the YouTube Persian world or whatever. And you can see all the comments like, "Oh my God, your mom is hilarious. Oh, she's so funny." Blah 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 blah. And then after that, I took a few more times to kind of like prank her and like get her in some videos. And then she kind of just naturally accepted it. She's like, "All right, here we go, another video with Nema." And she didn't like it at first. She was very
Okay.
shy, didn't like it, but she like understood it in a way. But then it got to a point where on Instagram, when I start to actually intentionally bring her into the video as a skit, and then that video blew up, and she saw the comments like, "Oh my God, Nema, like, yo, do more videos with your mom. Look, your mom is hilarious. Oh, she cussed
Wow.
you out like this. She said this. That was so funny." And she was reading the comments, and she's like, "Oh my God, Nema, look what they said about me." And then that's when she started to like realize, oh, like this is actually helping my son in his career. Yeah, like fine. Like I still don't really like it. I'm shy, but like let's whatever, it's fine. Like, but tell me ahead of time and so I can prepare and clean up and whatever. So yeah, that's pretty much how it started with her. And now it's at a point where when we do videos, she's like, Nima, okay, we have to do this one. Okay, now you do that. I stand here. You
Yeah.
okay. If I say this line, you say that one. Okay. She's directing me.
Wow. Has she thought about doing kind of like what is her name? Zagnar, the Indian lady?
Zarna Garg?
Yeah, yeah. She thought about that, just
She's hilarious.
breaking off on her own, doing her own.
Everyone says, "Yo, Nima, your mom needs her own page, needs her own channel." I was like, "Yeah, like of course, but she's not gonna be able to do it on her own. Like that's not her thing. Like I would have to set it up somehow or get someone to film stuff." But we actually thought about maybe starting a cooking channel for her.
Oh, nice.
She
Yeah.
already cooks all the time anyway, and she's a Persian chef. Like she's been a Persian chef for 30 years. Like she's the best. All she needs to do is just do her thing, and then people can film, right? But maybe so. Yeah.
That's a great idea. But either way, you're like creating the space for your whole family to be involved and like be part of this thing, which is really cool. It's very, very Iranian.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm very lucky because my parents are, I don't know if it's rare, but usually in a Persian household, like, some parents are much more strict than my
Yeah.
parents were especially with career stuff.
Yeah.
Like, no, you have to be engineer, right? Like all this stuff, or doctor or dentist, whatever. But for me, they never said that to me. They're just like, as long as you're happy and you can make money and you can be successful, do whatever, but just do it all in, do 100%. And so that's why I took from the very beginning. Every time I'm struggling or I'm feeling down or something's not hitting, I'm like, okay, but remember what they said, and I don't want to let them down either.
Wow. Do y'all have conflict? That's a weird question, but I do like it seems like y'all are they're so accepting and they're so of all these things that you want to do. Like, is there anything that they really push back on or
Yeah, sometimes. Well, my dad, he's also off camera. No one knows People like, "Yo, Nima, do you have a dad?" Like,
I thought she was a single mom until we talked last time.
yeah, it's fair. But no, he just like he also hates the camera. He doesn't want to be on camera at all, but
Yeah.
he's fully supportive off camera. Like it's funny because for years people thought I didn't have a dad, but literally every video you see, he's like on the other side.
Wow, that's so cool.
He's not filming me. He's just like there. He's just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and he loves it. He enjoys it. He like likes the videos. He comments on a lot of things. Like he's just supportive and he's like, "Oh, that was a good video." Or like sometimes he's like, "This one was like kind of random, but like yeah, but this one's hilarious."
He gives you notes.
Yeah, yeah. He makes notes. He's like, "All right, so today the feedback I have, this one's shit. This one made me think, okay, you probably should have went to school." No, the most conflict was like pretty much there were certain like videos I would do about my dad or like say certain things or certain actions that he didn't necessarily like as much. And he came to me, he's like, Nima, like, I have an issue with this one because like I don't do that or like, that's not me or like that's not something I would say. I'm like, yeah, but you're missing the point. It's not about you specifically. It's about dads in general that are Persian with inspiration from you. Um, and then he's like, yeah, but like there people are gonna think I'm saying those things. I'm like, no one's gonna think that. And also, they don't care. It's just funny. It's a comedy skit. So there's a few times where I had to kind of explain that, but then he quickly realized he's like, all right, like okay, fine, like because he saw how much I was doing with my mom too, and like she was getting the the ultimate roast every time. So he kind of accepted it.
It's not like any existential kind of conflicts like you're saying, like,
No,
they've just been very
yeah,
that's so nice.
yeah. That's why I'm very lucky because my parents could have been way more strict. Like a lot of my friends or people, other people, cousins that I know that their parents would never even let them do this in the first place.
Right. Or not just that, it's like there is a certain, like, critical nature of Iranians that, like, just puts you down, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, instead of being, like, encouraging and, like, uplifting, sometimes, like, it can go in that direction, and like you're saying, it's just it might be out of a place of love, like, they just want what's best for you, they've, like, come through all this, like, trauma and conflict, that I see that a lot, like, where parents are just like, just won't let their kids flourish, and it seems like the way they've done that for you is, like, they've really let you flourish and, like, really reach your potential.
Yeah, 100%, and I'm always grateful about it, and I talk about it in my set now, actually, my tour set. There is a part where I say I don't wanna give it away, but there's a part
Yeah,
where I talk about how my, they still will humble me,
yeah.
in private, but then in front of their friends, they'll hype me up like I'm the best comedian in the world.
Oh.
'Cause they also have that pride of like, "Oh, well, look at what my son's doing." But then they'll still criticize in private of like, but like, "Yo, you should do this," or "Why are you doing that?" Blah, 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 but it's just like the dynamic of Persian parents. It's like they want their image to be really well on the outside,
Yeah. So,
you know?
when you first started your comedy, like, were you, being so much, like, in the Iranian space? Like, right now you have a lot of support from Iranian, followers and fans and stuff. So where do you see yourself in that? Like, are you did you always start off that way?
Yeah, so I when I first started comedy, what I learned just from watching other comedians or just learning about the scene itself, I was like, I gotta talk about stuff that's, I guess, closest to me first, and then I can grow out and branch out. So at first, I was never doing any of the cultural jokes that you see now or of different cultures or random other types of videos I do because I was like, let me start with one thing that's closest to me, and that's Persian culture. Obviously, my mom, my dad, family stuff, and that was pretty much the essence of my comedy from the start, and it is still now, but just in a different way, on a larger scale. But yeah, at first, every video I did was about Persians. It was just like, but then I'm happy, and that's why I'm happy my brother came along on board early because he was the one who actually called out the fact that, you know, yo, okay, this is good, you got the Persian stuff down, but like, you got to start expanding because you don't want to box yourself into just Persian stuff and end up like, someone who is just doing jokes about that culture or those type of people because that's also not who you are. Because who I am is I joke about everyone.
Right.
And it's Russell Peters is one of my comedic influences as well. And so it's like I'm very similar to him in that way. And my brother was right, because now I have fans from everywhere, and it's not just Persian. And every the my tour just started, and I had like 6 shows so far. Pretty much, like most of the audience is not Persian.
Wow.
Like I'd say like honestly 90% of people aren't Persian. It's like a mix. It's like Eastern European, Italian, Greeks, Chinese people, Indians, like the whole spectrum. And then there's like that, still portion of Persians, but it's not like the main one at all. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's great because it's spread equally. And I'm not just talking to Persians, I'm talking to different people. So yeah, I think it's great for that reason.
So what about like was your family very like political when you were younger? Like did they talk about politics a lot? Like what was the
Well, my mom, zero, doesn't talk about this stuff at all. My dad, completely opposite. All political. That's all Persian dads are, typically. Every Persian dad I know is all about CRC, just politics.
But what was your experience of like the women life freedom movement, for example? Was that something that was how was it in Toronto? What was it for like you and your friend circle and stuff?
Yeah, it was for me. It was a little bit different than others because of my, I guess, my influence online. Obviously, like me personally, I'm not a political person at all, and it's not that to say I don't care. It's just I don't even know what's going on, and I don't think my brain has the capacity to even understand most political things. But also because I'm so focused on so many other things that take up a lot of space in my head, in terms of my health, my own comedy. It's tough to kind of fight that battle sometimes. Um, but obviously, I'm very supportive of it, and when it happened in Toronto, it was like one of the biggest rallies that we had. And obviously my dad is super involved because him and his dad, my grandfather at the time, they were he was a journalist in Iran, and he got like brutally, tortured and things in jail and everything like that. And my dad too, like he had to leave because he was talking against the government and everything. And even now, obviously, like his whole life has been about trying to understand the problems within their home country. And
Right.
yeah, but for me, obviously, like people were coming at me when I didn't talk about it for like one day,
Got it.
because that's a new thing, right? Is like people who have followings. It's like as soon as something happens, you got to mention it, you got to talk about it. And I get it, but at the same time, it's like it's not as easy as you think it is, because there's so many implications if you do talk about it or if you don't talk about it.
Right.
So you just have to find what works for you. For us, I was actually at the beginning of my last tour, in the middle of it, and people were like coming after me, saying, "Oh, like you can't believe you're not talking about it. Like you're a fucking disgrace. Like I hope your family dies. Like just crazy shit."
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but um, I realized, because I never touch on political stuff at all on my content online, it was like a tough decision to be like, all right, well, like I'm not gonna be someone I'm not, but also there's a little bit of responsibility of like, all right, at least like it's your own people, so maybe
Right.
you can say something in your own way
Yeah.
or help in your own way. And so what we did is, sorry if I'm like going on a tangent, but
No, no, this is exactly what I wanna know 'cause I feel like you're in this Iranian state. The reason I got into that, I don't wanna get into politics and stuff, but, the reason I'm asking is just you're a visible, like, Iranian, comedian, and I feel like there's so much, like, fighting in the diaspora. There's so much, like, ugly stuff happening all the time. So, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to know if you're, like, on the receiving end of that or how you navigate it.
yeah, no, so the thing we learned early on is like because there's people who like can actually form an educated opinion on things like that have that severity, but I don't have that. But what I do know how to do is make people laugh. And so what we did is we actually produced a charity comedy show for efforts of sending money back to Iran to help a school of children in one of the cities. But like that's my way of raising awareness or like helping the cause. And it actually did turn out to go quite well. And we sent money to a school, and they actually put my name and my brother's name on
Wow.
the classrooms. So it was cool. Like I didn't do it for that, but they were just like ecstatic. And it's like I can't help a whole country, but I can help at least one person or one neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the way to go about it, and that's pretty much what I would do going forward if something were to come up. But you just never know. You just never know what happens.
Yeah. So what about your collaborations right now? I saw, you'd had a really awesome collaboration with Omi Jalili.
Yeah.
What is your relationship like with other comedians? Is that the main person that you've collaborated with in the Iranian uh comedian diaspora?
Yeah, he's definitely one of the OGs of the Iranian community and of comedians as well. And yeah, he's a legend. I was actually surprised that he knew who I was and he followed me and messaged me even with something nice about
Cool.
keep going and like I love your stuff. I was like, holy shit, that's crazy. And then so I was in Australia at the time, and he happened to have a tour there, and I was like, "Oh, let's line it up. I would love to meet you." And then we ended up meeting up. He was like happy to do it. He was the nicest guy. He did my podcast. We filmed a few videos together. Like he was all for it, and he's one of the kindest, most generous guys I've met in the comedy world in general.
Wow, so cool.
Yeah, and it's so nice to see that because sometimes you meet certain people that it doesn't you think they're going to be a certain way, but they're not,
Yeah.
and it completely ruins it for you. And it's happened to me in that world a few different times. And I'm not going to name those names, but it's disappointing to say the
Yeah.
least. Because it takes nothing to just be a kind person and to give, not even give back, but just be appreciative and grateful that someone is looking up to you in a way that you probably looked up to someone. And I'll never forget that, especially after meeting Omi Jalili or Russell Peters when I opened for him. It's like he was the same. He was like, "Yeah, like what up, man? Like, yeah, you want go do whatever you want on stage, like good shit, blah blah blah. Like, love your videos." I'm like, "What the hell? That's crazy." So that's the responsibility I feel like I have too as a rising comedian. There are people right now who tell me that I am inspiring them, and
Wow.
I'm not anywhere near those guys are yet. But like at some point it starts, right? So I feel like once you have that mindset, it's easy to kind of just be okay with helping others, and it takes nothing to do that.
That's cool. And tell me a little bit about what just happened with Drake. That was a big
Oh yeah,
big deal.
that was crazy. That was one of the most surreal moments of my life. It was a huge milestone in my career. That was also a crazy thing that he knew who I was too, and when he was, you saw the video, I'm sure, the
Yeah,
of he was reading the letter we wrote, and he's like, "Oh, Neema," and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like he knows my name, he knows who I am.
that's
And
crazy.
well, the thing is, he had already followed me like a year ago, like
Oh,
so he knew
wow.
who I was, but I didn't realize he like really knew who I was. And so that was one of the coolest moments of my career. And as a comedian, as an artist, you have imposter syndrome. You think, like, is this from like, am I deserving of this? Should this be happening to me? And there were certain moments along my career that those questions would arise. But then this was one of those first times I definitively I was like, oh, I deserve this shit because I've been working for like 10 years,
Wow.
just grinding like nonstop, putting stuff out and going out to doing shows and working on my material. And like this happens for a reason. This obviously happened for a reason. I because I deserve it. And it's like I had to tell myself that for the
Yeah.
first time. And I think that's important as an artist is to like, tell yourself you deserve it because of all the work you put in over the years. And it's totally fine. It's not conceited. It's not cocky. I don't think that is at all. And yeah, and now we're working towards setting up a film date together.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing. Well, congratulations. It's been awesome seeing your journey. It's been so wonderful seeing you develop, your family, everything that you've been doing is like a positive vortex that has been drawing a lot in. So it's very, very cool to see.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's been such a fun ride, and it's only getting better and better. There's so many things we're working towards now, and looking forward to collabing with different people like yourself too.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your Canada and US tour.
Yeah. Right now, I'm currently on the Canadian tour, and I'm going on the road for like 3 weeks starting next week to do a bunch of shows.
And these are pretty like big venues too. I've seen the videos. That's amazing.
Well, yeah, I'm very lucky, honestly. I'm very grateful because, the last tour we did was much smaller and naturally, you gain some more following and you kind
Yeah.
of exponentially grow. So, yeah, these have been great. Those are my main markets, obviously the biggest venues. There's still a few coming up in Canada, but yeah, there's a lot coming up on the road. And then the European dates we're announcing next week too, so that's gonna be
Ooh,
fun. First time in Europe, and yeah, doing like 13 different cities there. And then
cool.
US is like 50 cities. It's nuts. It's there's a lot coming.
Not Austin yet for some reason, but
That's the only place no one has gotten back to us.
that's crazy.
No one. Zero.
Okay, well, I'll write Joe Rogan today. I'll see. I'll see what I can do.
Or we'll do it out of your studio or something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, anytime. Okay, well, cool. Well, is there any other thing that you want to say to the Iranian diaspora, or is anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think if you're watching this and you're a young Persian man or a woman or whatever, whatever you are, at some point, you know, especially if you have parents that are from a different country and they might not understand you fully, that's okay. And it's okay for you to rebel against that and do stuff that you actually enjoy doing, because in return, you realize how much more worth it is and how much better your life will become and how much your parents will actually, weirdly enough, understand it later on. But it's the first few years that might be tough, and you're discouraged and you're unsure. But as long as you believe in your own self and your skills and your potential, other people will start to believe it slowly but surely. And I think that's super important to kind of, you know, realize.
I love it. And I'll add to that, for me, like my family was definitely more of a I have a single mom, but she was very much more like, no, you have to get a good job. You have to do this. You have to do this. And I never wanted to do it. I'm much more of like an entrepreneur and like my own whatever. So then she was like, you got to get this architecture degree. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went through the whole architecture degree, but the whole time I was like side doing all this stuff, you know? Like I really just wanted to be, a podcaster or whatever, that I just did it on the side. And after years and years and years, now I'm just kind of like, it takes so long. Like I finally like surpassed my architecture income. I did this, I did it, passed all these milestones. And finally, like, they're like, oh, okay, I see you're doing something.
Not bad, not bad.
Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes you have to push through. I love what you just said. And it's wonderful. Like, congratulations to your parents for being able to push through their own, not do that to you. That's amazing. And hopefully this next generation won't do that to the next generation, you know?
That's the point,
Yes.
right? Is it just you keep progressing as a generation, and I do think it's going that way. There's a lot of younger Persian people, our generation and younger, who are like starting to wake up and become more of that mainstream kind of,
Yeah.
you know, be entrepreneurial, like be
Yes.
do things that you enjoy, have you have a passion for,
I
because
love it.
that's not terminology that you would hear 20, 30 years ago in
Yeah.
Persian culture, right?
But I think what you said of for a few years it's hard. You're absolutely right. Just push through those like few years and have conviction in what you want and what makes you happy for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Because what you don't want is to resent your parents or your family and then resent yourself. Because that's
Right.
one of the worst feelings I think any human being could go through, is regretting not trying something or doing something because their parents said they don't want them to do it. That's the most ridiculous
Absolutely.
thing I push back against the most in my life. I think it's ridiculous. And yeah, like you just, because they don't have full context on you. You know yourself the most. And yeah, it's tough, like you said at first, but it's like it's just worth it if you just get over that hump.
Awesome. I love it. Great note to end on. And so hopefully see you in Austin very soon. But we'll link to your tour dates and to your Instagram page and everywhere that people can find you. Is that the best place, Instagram?
Yeah,
I
sure,
know.
yeah. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. Same name, Nema Naz.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And until I see you in Austin.
Thank you, Leyla Jun. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very nice. Very good.
Very.